Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm Tracy Cherry. I'm filling in for Michelle today since she's out of town, so bear with me. Not 100% sure what I'm doing, so here we are.
I doubt any of us could get up there and pull it off. So you're ahead of us.
Brandy is going to be back there on Zoom, helping all you guys on Zoom with questions and making sure that y'all can hear everything. We've got our panel here today. It's going to help us out. Lauren Sims with Shape and Title. He'll help us figure out how the solar stuff's written on the title commitment and that you'll understand that. Cody Waddle's here. He's our solar rep. He'll answer any questions for the solar panels themselves. And then Blaine Brawley, he'll answer all the insurance questions and how solar affects the insurance policies. So let's get started. All right. Okay, let me move over. Some of the takeaways we're going to have today. Different ways that you can acquire the solar system. 5 ways. The UCC filing, financial statement, why that's important. How the solar systems impact appraised values, and the documents that we need from the sellers, specifically whenever you're selling a house. There's JJ.
I accidentally told him that it was 11 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. So this
Hey, only 3 minutes late? That's good.
I said, are you sure? Because Michelle said 10.
I said, no, it's 11. It's 11.
Okay. My apologies.
Do you want to talk about it?
Not right now.
Oh,
Yeah, here.
Except wherever you want to.
Serving tray. Okay, JJ will help us with the home inspector side, what they look for. Okay, so yeah, the last thing's documents that we'll need and what to include in the seller's disclosures. So the 5 ways that they can get a solar panel cash, pay for cash, that shows that the owner is going to be the homeowner. So they own the solar panels with the house. It's not because sometimes it's either the homeowner or sometimes the solar company is the actual owner, not the homeowner. So it all depends on how they acquire it.
No, if they pay cash, it's owned outright by the homeowner.
They're the owner. A secured loan, so they can get it through a secured loan and the owner is the homeowner again. Unsecured loans, they can acquire it through that and they would be the owner as well there. And then they can lease it with the solar company. And then that would mean the owner is the solar company, not the homeowner. And then the PPA, same again, system owner is the solar company, not the homeowner. So, I don't know what the PPA is.
Yeah, so the
Okay,
so the difference between a lease and a PPA, on your lease, you're leasing the panels. On the PPA, you're actually giving the solar company permission, or the lender, whoever, permission to put those on the house, and you're paying for just the power it provides. Pay per
Yeah,
amp,
it's
I
on
think
here
it's pay
somewhere.
per amp. It's not very common. You don't see that very often. It's not a good deal. Neither is leasing.
Yes. So UCC filings. Does everybody know what a UCC filing is? Yes. So it's pretty much just a statement showing it's collateral so that other creditors know that there is a loan on that fixture. So a fixture, goods that have become related to a particular real property that an interest in them arises under real property law. So a fixture for a home, like landscaping, ceiling fans, things that become one with the home. So pools.
That's a big one.
Yeah. So the solar panels typically become a fixture, part of the home, and we'll get into that later of when they do and when they don't. But the UCC filing, what that is, we just kind of went over that. And then the financing statement. Sorry, I'm like I'm all up on the Zoom people. The financing statement is the. Do you want me to read all of that or just kind of? So really, it just gives notice that the solar system owner, it's not the homeowner, but the solar lender instead. So that's just saying that like, we own this, you don't, but you're paying for it. Okay, so the different ways that it impacts the mortgage financing. So if they're using it as if cash, if they just pay it outright with cash, the solar system will be included in the appraised value. It's considered real property fixture, so that they own it outright. It's part of the home. And then the appraiser must include comparable sales with solar if available, and comment on the marketability of the property with the solar system. So that kind of goes hand in hand with it being part of the real property. Oh, also I have Jamie back here. Jamie is our ops manager, so she's gonna help us answer questions. She's kind of our expert on solar panels financing. I think so. Documentation needed from the seller. So you're pretty much, no matter how they obtain the solar, you're pretty much gonna need the same thing. Sometimes you just have to add a couple more documents. So the solar purchase agreement, we pretty much need that always. Any documentation that the seller has that describes manufacturer, size of the solar system, 12 months of history, electric bills to show buyer what cost electricity has been over the past year. 12 months of data from website for the solar monitoring platform. You kind of want to go in a little bit more on that. And
So I don't know how far back it goes, but pretty much every system that gets installed now comes with a live real-time monitoring update. So you can log in on your phone and it will show you what those panels are producing. The main thing about that is most of your panels are warranted for 25 years, and there's a guarantee on their production over that period of time. I think it's that at 25 years, they have to still be producing 85% of what they were shown to from the beginning. So that app will tell you what those are making, and that way you will know kind of, you can compare like what the electricity bill is going to be, how much power it's going to make. It just gives you a lot of different information. It's handy to have, especially like if you're shopping rates, like with electric companies. You can go through and kind of figure out like if maybe the panels that are up there aren't going to produce enough for what you're going to use, and you're going to wind up spending more money, because most of your systems are supposed to exceed whoever installs them's demand like by about 30%, because you're going to need about 15% to break even on the electricity bill, and then you want about another 15% on top of that to kind of as a buffer in case they've got, you know, like our July when it was 100 degrees for every day and their air conditioner is running nonstop. Like you need those things to kind of even it out. But yeah, it's really, it's just an app. That's it.
mhm.
Is, so it says 12 months. So is that, we're talking about loan requirements. Is that like the minimum because if somebody just installed it? Their first bill is in September. That was their first electric bill, but it's on the market right now. And so there's going to be 1 month.
Yeah, and that's fine because on the solar, on the agreement, the purchase agreement, we'll see that. So you just have to make it make sense, right, Jamie?
For our purposes, we don't necessarily need to know what the consumption
Yeah.
and the energy cost is. We just need to be able to make sure we understand if it's a secured lien or if it's an unsecured lien or if it's capped, and how we need to treat it, if it needs to be included in the LTV for the purchase or if it's not going to be included. So the energy consumption portion of it is not going to impact the lender.
And I think that may have more to do
With
with
this
if you're
solar
doing like
disclosures.
the renovation or the energy efficient, like the loan. I think that's where that comes in.
Mhm.
And Tracy, you might need to just reiterate the question whenever they ask.
Oh.
I don't know.
Y'all didn't hear that question, did you? just in case, to repeat it. So she was asking if the sellers just put the solar panel system on and have only been there for the solar system has only been there for a month, then what documentation do they still need the 12 months data? So short answer is not necessarily, depending on the loan, the loan program and what they're doing. So that's kind of a case by case. I'll get that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tyler. Go.
Okay, got thumbs up.
I like a lollipop.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for an unsecured loan, the system is not included in the appraised value.
Can you not do that?
Not a real property fixture, it's personal property. So when it's paid off, the system will become a real property fixture.
Flavor.
So they'll have to file a financing statement to prepare the report.
Yeah. Here's
And
mixed. I think that's
the
Serena.
loan is paid off.
So,
Documents there are pretty much the same thing. So
It's a green
oh, good. I'm so glad.
I'm not doing very good at this. Okay, so for an unsecured loan, stand with the mic over here. Okay, we're gonna do this again. Round two. Okay.
Tell everybody to mute themselves.
Hey, Zoomers, can y'all mute yourself pretty please? Thank you. And then can y'all hear me? Thumbs up. Okay, awesome. Okay, so for an unsecured loan, solar system's not included in the appraised value because the system's not real property yet. So it's still personal property. Once it's paid off, it will become a real property fixture. There'll be the UCC filing. The financing statement will appear on the preliminary title reports and will be removed when solar loans paid off. Documentation's pretty much the same thing there. Documentation that provides the manufacturer and or size of the solar system. So we'll need that for the unsecured loan. And then Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about how this appears on the preliminary title report?
Can they hear me? Do I need to be?
You probably need this. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come over here. That way it's easier. Okay, the UCC filing statement's gonna show up in your Schedule C, just like any other secured loan would. In your, if it's taken out through a mortgage also, it's just gonna show up as a lien on the property. We have run across an instance, and I hate to bring this up, but if you do see solar panels on the house, please ask people. Because we had one we closed about 6 months ago, and if the realtor wouldn't have told us, the solar people did not file anything. So it didn't show up on any UCC, it didn't show up on any title report, it didn't show up on anything. It was just a personal loan. So we had no way of knowing that the solar panels were on the house and he had a $30,000 lien on the house. Luckily, the agent told us. The agent gathered the information from the people. They gave us who they bought them through. We obtained a payoff. No damage was done, but it's just scary to know that they can have a $30,000 lien on the house and nobody will know about it if they don't tell us. So if you see solar panels on the house, when you're listing a house or showing a house or showing your buyers, somebody better find out if those were paid for and where they're at. And if they don't show up on the title commitment when you get it, you better start asking some questions because it gets scary real quick.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, using a lease. Don't do it, right?
Yeah, just don't. Bad news, like, just walk away.
Yeah, so if it's obtained by lease, it's personal property and will not be included in appraised value. Financing statement of a notice of independent solar energy producer contract. So you have a contract versus a lien. So collateral blocks reflect solar panels and related components as the only collateral. We do need a little bit more documentation on this. The lease agreement amendments, most recent monthly lease account statement, documentation that provides manufacturer's size of the solar system.
That, I'm just gonna tell you, if that right there, if you are listing that house, you need, so on the documentation that provide from the manufacturer, if you're listing that house, you need to get in touch with them weeks before you plan on doing anything. It is very slow to
Good
get
to
that
know.
stuff back from them. It takes forever. So just be prepared. If you're about to list a house that's got solar on it, that's the first thing you want to start dealing with.
Good to know, good to know.
And I will add to that as well, is, if there is a lien against it, some of those companies will not release the lien until the loan is paid. So then you could really get into some trouble, because we can't loan until it's paid off as well, you know, so, or if we're including it, you know. Ratio's still okay. Yeah, just try to get all the information.
Yeah, and then that's the main thing with solar panels is try to find out how they obtained it. And I mean, first and foremost, and then what we got to do before it even goes on the MLS. Like, let's figure this out and get it done. Okay, so PPA, so power purchase agreement, not included in the appraised value, personal property, notice of independent solar energy producer contract. So once again, that's a contract. And then documents are going to be the same as your lease for the most part. You may have any questions on that. This, like Cody said, this isn't super common.
You're not gonna see that very often. But that and the lease are terrible. And whoever has it is gonna tell you that it's not a big deal and they can get whoever's buying the home, they can transfer that lease over. 70% of people don't qualify when they do that. Like, they just don't get transferred. It's a disaster.
Can you tell the Zoom people again about what the power purchase agreement is?
Okay, so the difference between the power purchase agreement and a lease is you are leasing the solar panels themselves. With a power purchase agreement, you're actually leasing the energy that the panels provide. And so the solar company still owns the panels. You do not lease those. They're in full control of that. You are essentially, I mean, it's really no different than just having an electric bill. Like, you're renting your electricity. You're paying them for the electricity that solar panel provides, and what you use. I think that's the main difference. You're paying for what you use, not how much it provides exactly. Whereas they get credits from the electric company for buybacks and stuff like that, because 9 months out of the year where we live, we generate in a surplus if the panels are set up right. So, 3 months out of the year, you're at a deficit. That's going to leave you with 6 months of the year where everything on top of that is icing on the cake for them. That's money they're making. So typically you see people with these because they're so cheap. Same with the lease. Leases, you're going to see what would be $100,000 setup on somebody's house. The lease on that's probably going to run them $100, $200 a month. Whereas, like, the purchase of that, it's $400 or $500 a month solar panel. That's why you see them, is how much cheaper they are.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So is it theoretically possible, that's on the lease, would be the place that would happen, that a purchaser could pay over those payments if they qualify?
Yes, yes.
So she asked if it was possible on a lease or PPA if the purchaser could take over the payments if they qualify. And the answer is yes. They
And
can.
that would be qualifying under the terms of that lease and
Their credits got to
payment
match.
to the
Yeah.
income ratio.
Mhm.
Right.
And that's
Correct.
so that's the single biggest issue that we see with solar is everybody's buying a house is buying the most expensive house they can afford. So when it's got solar on it, you're talking about adding another $300-400 a month for, you know, if it's probably a 2,500 square foot house or more, payment onto that, which puts them out of their DTI. They no longer qualify.
Especially if they've got HOA
Mm-hmm.
and insurance, taxes, all that other stuff that goes into the payment. So
Yeah, because in their head, they think, oh, I can afford, you know, it's the same as electricity bill.
Right.
It's a little less than our, I can pay that, but because of the DTI thing, it's like, well, technically that pushes you out of what you're spending all of your money on your house. Instead of buying something maybe a little less, you can afford more easily. You know, I got approved for $350, we're buying at $350. We're actually looking at $400 and hoping we can get it to $350. You know.
yeah, exactly.
Wayne, how does it affect insurance?
It's a lot.
Yeah, come on up here and explain that.
I've got a few little notes, kind of pull this up, just because it makes it easier. So solar, the very short is some carriers don't offer coverage for it. So like it's an underwriting guideline, so they just won't cover you. They'll just say, hey, go get somewhere else. We're sorry you put them on your house. We can't do business with you anymore. There's plenty out there that don't do that though. And they take it just fine. Most people don't think about it though. They go, oh, well, if the house is $350,000 without the solar panels, then I need to add $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to what they call coverage A, because I bet if that house burns down, you want money for the solar panels to be put back on there. Most clients don't think about that. A lot of times agents don't as well on the insurance side. I pulled up one of our carriers right now that I just found out something changed in the past week for us. Solar panels are relatively new, all things considered, on homes. Insurance is always trying to keep up. It's always trying to adapt. It's always trying to change because they want to make their percentages on how much money they make every year. That just kind of is what it is. But with solar panels, so Travelers is one of the carriers that I write more than anybody, especially up here in Grayson County. They literally just changed their rules in the past, I'm going to say 2 weeks, because I know I looked at them a few weeks back. And this is very carrier specific, but if it's 54 panels or less, you can cover it with the house itself. So it's basically adding 100,000 or whatever it is to the $500,000 home. Just throwing numbers out there. So 600,000 is how much you would actually insure the home and the solar panels.
How many panels?
Well, so this is one carrier, 54 or less.
Yeah, that's pretty rare. You're not going to see that many panels on a house for the most part.
Okay, what's an average for a 400 square foot house?
400 square foot house?
Yes. No, 24.
Oh, I was like, I don't know what. Probably 10 to 12. That's probably what you're looking at. That's a lot.
Right.
That's what you're going to see. I guarantee you that has to do with the difference between residential and commercial.
Okay.
So you would see panels like that on a commercial building, like IKEA, off 121. That whole rooftop is covered in it. So that's probably what that number comes from.
Yeah. And then there's different things within that. So and this is again new, but if they're on the ground and not on the roof, it's covered completely different than if it is the roof. So that's other structures, which is coverage B. So typically you have 10%. So the example, so if you had a $500,000 home and you had 100,000 in solar panels, you need to increase other structures at least another 50,000. So if a tornado takes them out, and that's just solar panels. If they have a fence, if they have a shed, if they have a shop, mailbox, pool, that's other structures also that most agents just say, hey, 10% is good for you. Here it is. And then the last one, again, learning, if they're leased, they're covered under something completely different, which is personal property, because it's technically, and I think this is like title stuff, it's like personal property, not real property. I don't deal with that, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but that's just, it's something that's new there. But it is something you definitely want to make sure your client makes aware. A good agent's going to look at stuff on there, on the CAD or just everywhere. Photos, listings, all that stuff. So they should pick up their solar panels. Some insurance agents are just trying to make $1. They will skirt by it and just move on and be the cheapest because it wasn't insured the right way. Then that leaves your client exposed completely to whatever that cost was if something happens. Something else that I'll talk, or I guess they bring up briefly, some solar panels are covered, but then they're not covered for hail damage. What's the biggest thing the roof is covered for? That's where it's going to get hit. So if the house burns down, yes, you're gonna get solar panels back, but they're not gonna cover hail damage.
Interesting.
So that's, again, something that you need to know and have your clients educated about, or ask the right questions. And I know that's gonna sound odd, and I see some faces, it's just like, that's what it is. And I just know, because I read that once, and I go, okay, well, you're never getting business with that. You're never getting business with that until it changes.
You said that's extra, or it's just not a thing?
So it depends on the carrier.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's why you have to, it's very carrier specific. So it is one of those where it's just like, okay, well, okay, is it covered? Yes or no? Or is it underwriting acceptable? Yes or no? Then how is it covered? And then where is it covered? And then is it covered like for hail or not? So there's just a lot to it. And it's always changing. It's even this right
Yeah,
here.
that's the one. It's the whole solar industry. It
Yeah.
changes by the week. You know, everything about it. So
Yeah, so that's
what
what
we say this week.
looking-
Right, is one thing.
yeah.
You might ask me to next week, and it's
Yeah,
completely
it-
different.
It's getting more and more popular too, so it's, important for us to try to keep up with it, but
Yeah, so it is one of those, like, this is a new thing, like within a week. So this one I'm reading, it wasn't there a week or two ago. So it is always changing. It's usually for the better, but it's usually more specific. Like as companies, insurance companies know how to cover a roof and how often they're gonna get hit, and how, I'm gonna say, just how much impact they can take from a hailstorm. Because if they're impact and they don't have to replace them as often, and they just have to take them on and take them off, more companies are gonna accept them
Mhm.
over time.
Old panels, they tend to break. New stuff, if you look at a solar panel and you can see the grids on top, that is an old panel. All of the new panels look just sleek and black. There's no grid in the middle of it. Those have got the same glass on them as like what the Gorilla Glass your iPhone's got. I mean, they can take baseball sized hail without breaking. The older panels, it doesn't take a lot. Like tree branches falls on something, it's breaking. That's pretty much how it is. So yeah, as a lot of these newer stuff comes out, that's probably when you'll really start to see a lot of that change, when they realize we're not having to replace panels every time somebody gets a bad storm.
Yeah, they're just having to take them on and take them off at that point with doing the roof. And that's it. Usually from what I've seen, and I've been doing it for a little over 8 years now, it takes about 3 years for a change to happen in like the housing stuff or with solar panels for insurance to truly get caught up where it's like 90% of people are okay with it. Same thing, like I know we're talking about homes, but like Uber drivers, no one would do that forever. And then Uber had to cover it. And when now slowly carriers are allowing it, realizing it's not as risky as they thought it was going to be at first. Same thing with solar panels. It just takes time for insurance to catch up so that they have the analytics and the data is the best way of saying it, to justify charging it or accepting it.
JJ, what
yes,
about
and
inspections?
now it's a good time for JJ to jump in. What do y'all look at for inspections?
Jump over to the mic.
Yeah.
So some things that people don't consider when getting these panels installed, and I think we've discussed this the last forum. So you've got the warranties for the panels themselves. Well, what about the hardware? What about the installation? Because my understanding, one company can own the panels, but then they subcontract it out as far as the installation. Is that right or wrong?
It
Or is that
depends
all
on the company.
depends on the
So
company? Correct.
like with us, we cover everything. I mean, our warranty actually covers panels, all the hardware, and then the roof. If we damage that roof putting them on, or if there's a leak that develops, because we cover everything from the roof surface. But like you said, there are some companies who they will warranty the production of those panels, but then they'll pass that warranty off to the installation crew on if there's any issues with the install where they tear something up, or if it's not right, and then over time it starts to break down. And so they won't want to mess with it. That's typically older stuff. Most of your new stuff is the warranties are pretty good on it. They pretty much cover everything from the shingles to the solar panels, everything in between.
Okay, so that being said, they may look good when you first go on, but later on down the line, when you go to sell the house and you call a third-party inspector to come look at it, and I get up in the attic and I see damaged decking, I see a cracked rafter, I see where it wasn't properly installed, and we've got to document that. Another thing too, the house is foam insulated, it's covered up, I can't see it initially, so that's a factor too. That just so my recommendation is that that's something you need to ask, have your client ask, say, okay, what about the existing hardware? What's about the hardware warranty, not just the panels, what all does entail, and talked about, okay, they can't afford it, they gotta remove it. All right, now who's gonna cover the replacement of the decking and the shingles all up underneath it? You know, the other thing too, I was thinking about, and we talked about this last time. Regardless of the age of the house, people are looking at solar panels. What if you're looking at a house that's 100 years old that has 2x4 rafters? Okay, it doesn't have properly supported with purlins. It's already got slope decking. The decking's already uneven as it is. Now you can put panels up there. Ask about if, when this installation, how they're going to properly support the roof. Okay, because that needs to be done. Okay, if there's any red flags on it at all, then contact the structural engineer. Okay, that's the best bit advice I can give you, because you do not want that additional weight on top of an older house. Okay, and we know Sherman Denison, we've got a bunch of, you know, like you said, everybody's jumping in on the solar panel, you know, wave, and you know, it's the new thing and it's great, but you got to make sure your house is structurally able to handle it. Okay, and I think a lot of people don't think of that, you know, off the bat. So, like I said, your roof is already bowing. You don't want to put panels up on it right now. So make sure that that's going to be addressed prior to installation. Okay.
Perfect.
Any questions? Any questions? Good.
Do you have any Zoom questions or anything?
But I asked them if anybody had any questions, so.
Well, I mean, I guess part of it, and I know a lot of this, but they probably don't. Say they get a listing and they have, like, for the first time when they go to the house and they see it's got solar panels on it, what are, you know, a couple things that they can just look at real quick that tells them, like, hey, I need to call somebody to come look at this, or, you know, maybe it looks fine. You know, just like red flags that might be easy for them to spot on the first time when they go out to look at this house.
Oh, you asking me a question?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah,
okay.
it's like for them.
Okay, well, if
Like the slope decking was one of them. Like if the
well,
roof
the
was
age
like
of the house,
sagging,
I mean, if it looks like it's sagging, if you can see, if you're looking at it and you actually can see any missing shingles or anything missing around the park or the vicinity of it, or if they're extremely buckling, because think about it. So a roof is not designed to be waterproof. It's designed to resist water.
shit water.
So basically, so what you have as far as if it's properly installed and overlapped properly and spaced properly, then the water's going to run off. But if you have any where it's raised, then you have the potential of water to get up underneath the shingle, get to the felt paper, and soak and damage the decking. Then if you're doing that, then you're weakening the decking around the solar panels, and then you're creating a bigger problem. So that's one thing you can look at is as far as looking at it, if you can look and see what the shingles look like around the panels, see if they're, you know, raised, if you can see any decking. If you can get in the attic and you can look, I'm not saying get up there and get dirty like I do, but if it has a pull down and you can get up there safely, okay, and we're saying safely, and just take a look. If you see a piece of decking that's about as black as the color of this table here, that's not good. That's water damage. Okay, she's already weak. And, you know, depending on the house, whether it's OSB or it's a plywood, you're hoping, you know, plywood, if it's plywood that bad, then you're in bad shape. OSB will get damaged pretty quicker, you know, quickly. But nonetheless, you see that blackening right there, you've got water damage. So that needs to be addressed. If you by chance, and hopefully not, you looked up and you see a rafter that's cracked in the vicinity, that's an issue. You need to get that addressed for sure. So these are some things that you could probably just take a peek at and look at. If you're not sure, hire an inspector. Doesn't have to be me. Hire somebody that's going to look after your client's best interest, to get somebody out there and look at it, climb in the attic and check it out when they're doing everything else. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Add-ons to a house. And it encompasses the original roof. Do you go the extra mile to be sure that that add-on was done properly?
And as far as the panels, you mean, or as far?
Well, I'm just talking the structure of the building itself, and now you're gonna put solar panels on top of an add-on that maybe isn't original, obviously not to the house, doesn't have the same foundation, because they might have cheated and not used.
Oh, you mean not physically attached to it, like a separate detached garage or something was installed
Either
on?
way,
Okay.
either way.
I think
Can y'all repeat
that's
that
that. I
question?
think that's gonna come down more on the city inspector when they pull the permits to build it, to qualify that as being built properly or not.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the question is add-ons, as far as how does that tie in with the installation, if that's looked at also.
I
So
guess the bottom line is, that would be a red flag.
If it has an add-on,
Yeah.
honestly, I would trust new construction a little more than I would the older stuff. Like if it's an old house with an add-on, I'd feel a lot more comfortable putting it on the new section than with the old one. Because it's built at 2 code, or it should be. Like if permits were pulled and all of that, it should be built to code.
I'm gonna stick with the red flag.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but been around too long, you know.
You're not from these parts, are you? Theoretically, yes, I agree. Theoretically, yes, I agree with them. As far as newer, it should be done to code. Current building standards is the word that I use. However, if the third party's called in, I mean, first off, what's gonna get my attention is I'm gonna note it on my report regardless. There's gonna be documentation on my report saying solar panels are present. I'm also gonna have a comment in there saying that limited visibility as far as what's underneath and what I can expect as far as underneath it, as far as the shingles, because I can't remove them. So I'm gonna put that FYI in there because I've got to, as you all know, we have to CYA, okay? So that information will be in there. That being said, however it ties into electrical panel box, I'm automatically going to be looking at that and going, okay, all right, let me take a look over here too. I will notify sellers, agents, wherever, and say, hey, do you want me to take a look at X, Y, Z? And if they say yes, I'll look at it. If not, then I will make a recommendation. You need to get somebody to look at this prior to closing. Okay, because it should not be overlooked. Even though it's a newer construction, it should not be overlooked because you never know what's going to happen. Okay, so it should be at least looked at to some degree before the process is continued.
Are your inspection reports changing now?
As far as
Solar panel.
I have comments in it that as far as what I see that I make, I have a comment in it, I don't physically inspect and test them. I do not do that. So, but as far as any hardware damage, any damage is done to the structure, absolutely, I'm going to document that. Because to me, it's no different than a tree falling through the roof and puncturing it. That solar panels cause some damage to the structure. I'm documenting it. I'm taking pictures and it's going in my report. Okay.
If the seller has a loan on the panels, does the loan have to be paid off at closing or does it transfer to buyer?
That's my answer. That's not my expertise. I'm out. Tag.
Do you want to come up here?
Do I need to come up there?
Yep.
Come on up, Jamie.
All right.
Called up.
She has a great speaking voice too. So.
Oh. Okay, so the question was, if they're purchasing, just repeat it for me, Brandy.
If the seller has a loan on the panels, does the loan have to be paid off at closing or does it transfer to buyer?
So it can be paid off at closing. That's the simplest way to do it. And if the seller was going to pay that off, then we could get something from the title company indicating that was going to be the case to clear that lien. Most of the time, though, it's going to transfer to the new buyer. And in that case, they would need to contact the solar company directly. The solar company would have to qualify them for the existing loan. And then once that's done, then we would reach out to them to find out if they're going to do a temporary release for the title company or if we're going to need to subordinate it. Sometimes there is a fee associated with subordinating or a temporary release. All solar companies are different. I've had some that don't charge to do that when it's a purchase, but they do for a refinance. So it really and truly is going to come down to what the solar company requires. Any further questions on that?
When you say a small fee.
Usually it's a small fee is going to be about anywhere from $150 to $300.
Okay. I didn't know if that was 3 or 4 figures.
No, usually it's $150 to $300.
Their fees are high.
Yeah, and then you're going to pay that directly to the solar company before they're going to do it. And we want to make sure everything is set with the loan before that is requested, if they do require a fee, because there usually is an additional fee if they have to redraw it. So we want to make sure that we've crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, and that everything is good to go before we request that, so that we're, limiting the amount that the buyer is putting out for that documentation to be completed. So.
And then does that change? Or you have to update the, loan to income?
So it'll depend upon how the financing is done for it. Again, if there's the different types of financing. So if it's an unsecured loan, we're not going to require that it be added to the loan to value, meaning that we're not going to attach it to the property, but we are going to add it to their liabilities. So it's still going to count in their debt to income ratio. If it is a secured loan, then we are going to need to include it in the loan to value, and that's going to increase it, the loan itself, to account for that debt to income ratio. And do you have a question back there?
Yeah, so it's more about value. So the only time the solar panel gives any value to the home is if they're paid off.
Exactly. Pretty much. We'd have to go back through it because I know that there's so many, there's the 5
The
instances.
secured and unsecured loan, it adds value to the appraised value.
And so is that written like in special provisions on the contracts when the appraiser has that, they know to add value for that?
That would certainly be helpful. And that's really where, if you have a conversation with the seller up front and you find out what type of financing they have, you're going to be able to know better if that needs to have value included or not. So,
And
yes.
you also have to know on your comps.
Yeah.
Right.
Are we seeing any kind of value given yet?
Not here.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna make sure.
You guys
I'm not
about,
seeing anything.
not here. We're probably still 3 to 5 years away from that. You're seeing, I think Plano is getting around like a 3% increase. Dallas and Fort Worth last year, they had reports showing that there were comps that those same houses would go for up to 20-30% more in the right neighborhoods with solar on it. But it's very, very specific to certain neighborhoods. It's just not big enough yet, especially here, to add any equity to the home, really.
For all the ones that I have done both refinance and purchase thus far, none of them have had value added to the property through the appraisal. With the type of financing that has been included, we have not been able to have the appraiser add any value for them. So, and they've all been in this area.
Priceless.
Yeah, it will come. We're not there yet. Okay, thanks, Jamie. You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions for Jamie? before she-
Oh, yeah.
We good?
Just can't put a value.
Okay, so real quick, I'm gonna go. I think this is the last slide. Over this one real quick. So documentation to include with the seller's property disclosures. Let's consider uploading applicable documents to the MLS so that buyer agents can share with their clients before writing an offer. It's just good to know what kind of solar system they have, how it's paid for, things like that. So any amendments to the lease or PPA agreements, promissory note, most recent solar loan account statement. And like Cody said earlier, some of this stuff's going to take a minute to obtain. So if you first meet with your client, they have solar panels, start having them acquire this right away. Documentation that provides the manufacturer size of the solar system, 12 months history of electric bills, and 12 months data from website for the solar monitoring platform. Does anybody have any questions on those documents?
Are we gonna get a package of any kind?
Yeah, this is recorded too, so we'll send everybody out the video, the slideshow, notes, and things like that. So
I want to know, I put new shingles on the house now. Now,
So
all that stuff
I
in
don't
there.
know about how, like, we won't install on a house with a roof that's older than 10 years old. If somebody buys solar from us, that roof is going to be new, which if it's 10 years old or so, barring any type of storm, which that's why you have insurance, the solar panels and the roof should last approximately the same amount of time. So by the time your roof's wore out, you should be looking at new solar panels or just getting rid of them altogether anyways. I have seen where repairs need to be made. The only real good way to do it is to pull them off. And you're looking at $3,000 to $4,000 to take them off and then reinstall. Because it's almost like taking off one system and installing a whole brand new one.
What's the typical cost to install?
Like a cost of a system.
Yeah.
So
I know it's
every house,
a
every
400 square foot house.
every house is very specific. They're all different with components, the type of panels, the inverters, the phaser, all. But you're looking around here, $30 to $60,000 probably. Now you get up to houses that are in that 3,000 square foot or more range, and it literally starts to double and triple in cost because of just vaulted ceilings, you know, all the other things that make it harder to heat and cool the house. They've got pools, they've got big shops that have a lot of more electricity. Like their bills go from people with a $250, $300 a month electric bill that these guys are spending $1,000 a month on electricity. So their solar system is just as expensive. But I'd say on houses like that, I priced one. Well, okay. Do any of y'all know Quincy Allison Pools?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, priced his. So what was that? I think his house is right around 3,500 square feet with an add-on. Solar for his house with his pool and his 2,400 square foot shop was going to be about $140,000 system. But his payment, and this is why he was looking at it, payment on that was going to be around $600 a month. And his electricity bill is right now about $1,100, $1,200 a month. Yeah. Heated pool, jacuzzi, shop, boats, like all that stuff. So it's very specific. And number one thing that I tell people, if you're planning on selling your house within 5 years, do not put solar on it. You're not going to see any benefit. And you're just going to make everything a lot more complicated when you get ready to move out. So that's about it for me. Oh.
We have another one with that.
So like the roof, the solar panels only last so long and you have to.
They don't just quit, but some your older panels, you were usually like a 20, 25-year warranty on the production. Your newer panels, like your REC 400s, which that's the best panel on the market, it's got a 30-year warranty that in 30 years, it will still be producing 85% of what it's capable of making. So, you know, by the time, hopefully you didn't get a 25 or 30-year loan against them and you paid it off in 15, that's the best loan out there for solar. 15-year loan with 1.99 or 0.99% interest rate on it. That's going to be the best way to go because you're going to be able to, you know, pay that down fast enough. So yeah, in 10 years, if you do decide to sell your house, you're not going upside down on it. But at 25, 30 years on these newer panels, they're still going to be working. You might need to add a panel or two to the system, but not completely get rid of the system and start over. They will still be working and be in really good shape. And, you know, maybe cost you $1,500, $2,500, you know, something. Well, I'm sure it'd be more then, but you know, $5,000 down the road, and you got to add another couple panels to it, and you're back to making 130% of what your usage is.
In your experience, have you seen insurance pay the $3,000 to take them off?
Every time.
Okay.
Never had an issue with insurance. Like,
Sure.
so Frisco, March, they got a terrible hailstorm. It got destroyed. Me and Britton went down, trailer houses right there on the Little Elm border. It looked like somebody shot them up with machine guns. The wind was blowing so hard. I mean, hell was blowing through the vinyl siding on it. Yeah. There's a lot of solar once you get down around 380, 121. Every claim that we've had down there with insurance, that it is not an issue at all getting them to pay to take those panels off and go back. So that is one good thing about it. You know, you have a hailstorm, roof gets replaced, they'll pay to take the solar off, replace the roof, put the solar back.
If it's covered the right way.
Well, but the hail damage part isn't necessarily applied to this because you're not replacing the panels, you're just taking them off and putting them back. Yes, it's called the detach and reset.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Actually, two questions. So there's different kinds of panels. Okay, so are they all reservoir, they all save energy, so there's a lot, and there's makes it for you.
Oh,
Can you repeat
okay.
that question?
Battery, I've heard- I don't know.
Okay, yes, okay, so you're paying,
Repeat that question.
okay, so she asked, pretty much whatever extra electricity your panels produce, does it save that? Only if you have a battery. You have to have a power wall. Otherwise, it sends it back into the grid system and the electricity company credits that towards your account. If you live in an area that has a buyback, which we do, most people around here are gonna have that, which is how they get rid of your electric bill. Now, most people are gonna have a $10, $20 surcharge on their electric bill every month, no matter what, just for being connected. But that's kind of like the whole, how they get around that, saying like, you won't have an electric bill anymore. Because even though they're producing, your solar payment's $250, you're producing in excess of, 30% of what you normally use. And then all year you build those credits up to when you get to like November, December, January, February, you're using those credits back. Let's see.
Learning so much.
Oh, there's
I had no idea.
so the problem with solar is people buy what they can't afford, and it puts them in a bad spot. That's one of the big deals. Two, the old stuff is not nearly as efficient as newer stuff. So you're going to have people who bought systems 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it's going to be scams. All there comes out of it's not a scam. They just didn't do their homework when they bought it. They got hooked up with somebody who's had a sales job and sold them solar panels. But the newer stuff it's a lot safer bet. The financing is getting better on all of it. The state is, on the T-Rex side, they're starting to take notice and work stuff in. So it's getting better. It's not anywhere perfect, but it's a lot better now than it was 5 years ago. I'm with Power Solar, but I also work for Premier Roofing. So like roofing that's my main deal, which is why I can talk bad about solar, because I don't care if you buy it or not.
They just on the market.
Mm-hmm.
They only have one bill.
Mm-hmm.
So if they buy it outright, they can take up on whatever they're gonna do. But we asked about tax. What?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you. You need to talk to a tax professional. I have no liability, but so this is where a lot of things get confusing for people. There is no rebate. It is a tax credit. You will not. The government is not going to write you a check, but what they will do is 30%, or it was 26. It started 30, dropped to 26, and then the state renewed it back to 30 this year. 30% of your solar purchase, which can be your solar system, energy efficient windows, insulation, all that stuff can get rolled into the same loan, which is what you see a lot of these people do, and why they've got some of these loans that are just huge when they get done with it. But 30% of that you can get the tax credit for. What that means is, say at the end of the year, you got to pay in $40,000 and you got a $30,000 tax credit, you only owe 10. That's, but if you only owe 20 and you got a 30 or 40, you're not getting the difference back. They will let you roll that over the remaining amount to the next year though. So that's a good, it doesn't just go to waste if you don't use it all.
So they do allow credit all at one time, not.
Yes.
5 years.
Yes. No, it does not. It's not like your depreciation and stuff like that. You can use it all at once. And then another thing that people get confused about, you will, if the power goes out, you will not have power, even if you have solar, if you don't have battery backup, because it is tied into the grid. Or if you've got and we don't install these very often, it's called I think it's a phase switch, where you can actually change the phases and cut it off the grid itself and make it like almost like what you would see like bunkers or preppers have. Yeah, you're off grid. But if you are on the grid, like everybody, power goes out, like the snow and ice storm we had, you're not gonna have power unless you have a battery backup or generator. I like generators. Most solar companies are not gonna finance a generator with their solar because it's dirty energy. Batteries are only good for, you know, I don't know, you might get 6 to 8 hours use per battery out of one, where a generator can run for 6 weeks nonstop as long as you got the diesel put in it. I mean, that's, and the Generac, one Generac to power an entire house is going to cost the same as like one battery. And most houses need 2 batteries. Yes. So battery backup is good for some people, you know, like if they're hard up about being green and all that, but generators are the way to go.
Another question. If the seller can't find solar paperwork, what do they do?
They need to call the solar company directly. And that's
Yes.
something I was gonna go back to from when we were talking about documents. 90% of your borrowers are gonna think that they have all the paperwork, and they're gonna give you some little email that has a tiny bit of information in it, and that's not everything we need. We've gotta have the actual promissory note, we've gotta have the actual agreement. So the best thing for them to do is call the solar company as soon as they decide to sell their house and tell them, hey, I'm selling my house and I need to get all the documentation that goes along with my loan so that I can provide it to that buyer and they can provide it to them. Yes, great.
I didn't even
Say it again.
Such a good speech.
It was a good one. That was a good one.
No. Okay, so what I was saying is that 90% of the sellers or the person that's refinancing are gonna have a tiny email that they've got from the solar company that has a few little blurbs on it, and they're gonna think that that's all the paperwork that they've got. And it's not everything that we need. So they need to call the solar company and tell them that they need all of the documentation that goes along with it, a copy of the UCC filing, a copy of the promissory note, all of the documentation, because we as a lender are gonna need all of that to be able to do our part if we're gonna be financing.
every page of it.
Yes, and we have to be able to provide that up to our underwriters to be able to clear everything. So, yes, tell the seller, as soon as they decide to sell, you see their solar panels, you need to call your solar company and you need to get all the documentation because the buyer's gonna need that to be able to provide to the lender. So. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, Lauren, do you want to come up here and talk any more about title and how that looks on a title
I don't
commitment,
know what
or
else I can say. I mean,
Okay.
it's, you know.
you don't have to, just want to give you a chance if you had
documentation
something
and,
else.
No, not really.
Okay,
Like,
I have a question for them.
okay,
here you go, Lauren.
I thought I felt left out, but I'm good. You don't have to get me to stand up, Janelle. I appreciate it.
Anytime. I don't know how it is right now, but it used to be that we could open title before we actually had a contract.
Mhm.
Can we still do that?
Yes, ma'am. You can open title before you have a
Given
contract.
the issues with the solar, it would seem to be a very prudent idea to get that open, to get it started, and knowing exactly from the title company's perspective, you tell me what you need, not me guess what I think you need.
Yeah.
Because that seller's probably only gonna wanna talk to that power company, solar company, one time,
Mhm.
especially if they have to be on hold for an hour.
Yeah, if you do have someone, we will open title on anything that you're prospectively going to put on the market. Obviously, it needs to be serious. We can't go around opening title on everything. But if you do have one with solar panels and you're concerned about it, get with us. We'll open title on it. As soon as we run that title, we'll be able to see, okay, is it an unsecured loan? Does it show up on UCC? Does it show up as a regular loan? Or is it personal property where there's no documentation out there at all? And okay, now we need to start running down the documentation.
Do you think that the documentation that we're needing is close to what you guys would need, or less or more?
Really, all we need from a title perspective is, once we get to that point, is we're going to need a payoff from the solar company on what it's going to take to pay off the loan, if they're going to pay it off at closing, which we recommend they pay it off at closing, just so everything's done,
Needs to be
it's
there.
clean, it's clear. We're not trying to assume another loan.
And you would
And-
prefer that the seller get that information as opposed to giving you the information?
If they give us the information, we'll be more than happy to call the solar company and get it from them. Just like any other payoff or any other loan, we do usually need written authorization from the seller that, hey, fill out our little paperwork that says that we can talk to them, and then they can provide us with that information.
Do we have any other final questions? We're gonna wrap up.
A lot of extra questions asked if you got solar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't,
that's the
don't,
main
don't
thing, it's
assume
just-
anything.
Yeah.
Ask-
yeah.
ask all the
It can be a
questions, get all the
whooping.
info.
Like,
And y'all can call any of us. Communication, that's right. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, I'm humbled by how much I didn't think about.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Zoomers, y'all have any last questions?
One thing before everybody leaves, did everybody sign it?
And I have some goodies for the.
And then Brandy, can you pass around the evaluation form or start having them?
Everybody has to show.
I think that's only for
Yeah.
CE.
Okay, is anybody doing E? CE?
yeah, what's up?
Larry wants this is our second round of this. And more.
All right, guys on Zoom, do y'all have any last minute questions?
I'm sorry, yes, I am actually.
If not, we'll go ahead and end and we'll be sure to send this out to everybody as well. Thank y'all. I appreciate it.